chapter, third, human reproductive system. In that you have already learned about the male reproductive system, various organs of the male reproductive system, and the ducts as well as the different glands associated with the male reproductive system. Today we will begin with the female reproductive system, organs of the female reproductive system and the ducts associated with it, as well as the functions of the different parts of the female reproductive system and the process of gametogenesis. So we start with the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system consists of 2 ovaries, a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina and the external genitalia. I repeat, the organs of female reproductive system are a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina and external genitalia. Ovaries. First of all, we'll come to know where are they located. There are 2 ovaries situated in the abdominal cavity on either side of your abdominal cavity, on either side of the abdominal cavity. Each ovary measures about 3 centimeters, 2 centimeters and 1 centimeter in length, breadth and thickness. It is attached to the abdominal wall by peritoneal fluid. I repeat, it is attached to the abdominal wall by peritoneal fluid. The human ovary is a solid structure surrounded by germinal epithelium. I repeat, the human ovary is solid structure surrounded by germinal epithelium. This epithelium encloses the inner part of the ovary called stroma, S-T-R-O-M-A. I repeat, this ovary, it is surrounded by the germinal epithelium and its inner part is called stroma, S-T-R-O-M-A, and is followed by tunica albuginea It's a layer. The inner mass of the ovary is differentiated into cortex and inner narrow zone, which is termed as medulla. I repeat, the inner mass of ovary is differentiated into outer cortex and inner narrow zone called as medulla. The germinal epithelium gives rise to ovarian follicle cells. The germinal epithelium gives rise to ovarian follicle cells in various stages and their development. So there will be many types of follicle cell formed inside the ovary. Now we come to the next organ, that is oviduct or fallopian tube. There are a pair of oviducts which are closely applied to each ovary by a funnel-shaped fimbriated opening. I repeat, there are a pair of oviducts which are closely applied to each ovary by a funnel fimbriated opening. Each fallopian tube is about 10 to 12 centimeter long and extends from periphery of the ovary to the uterus. The parts of the oviduct closer to the ovary is funnel-shaped structure called infundibulum. The parts of the oviduct closer to the ovary is funnel-shaped structure called infundibulum. The edges of the infundibulum have finger-like projections called fimbriae. The infundibulum leads into a wider part of oviduct called as ampulla. I repeat, the infundibulum leads into a wider part of oviduct called ampulla. You can see all these parts on the screen. of your NCERT given in the figure 3.3p, which is showing you the diagrammatic sectional view of female reproductive system, showing you a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts, uterus, then cervix, cervical canal and vagina. The ampulla leads into a part which is a narrower called isthmus. I repeat, the ampulla leads into a part which is a narrower part called isthmus that join the uterus. Therefore, the fallopian tube consists of these three parts: isthmus, ampulla, infundibulum and fimbriae, which are the finger-like projection. Each fallopian tube is lined with cilia. To help the egg move towards the uterus. If sperms are present, fertilization takes place in the upper part of the fallopian tube, that is termed as ampulla. Thus, the function of the ovary is to produce the egg, and function of the fallopian tube to undergo the process of fertilization. Next part, that is uterus. The two fallopian tubes open into a thick-walled muscular organ called uterus. I repeat, the two fallopian tubes open into a thick-walled muscular organ called uterus. The uterus is single and is called womb. W-O-M-B. Its shape is like an inverted pear. It is attached to the pelvic wall by ligaments. It measures about 8 cm, 5 cm and 12 cm in length, breadth and thickness. It is joined on either side with fallopian tube and its lower portion opens into vagina. The uterus body wall consists of 3 coats. The innermost is endometrium, the middle layer is myometrium and the outermost layer is perimetrium. I repeat, the uterus wall consists of 3 coats. The innermost is endometrium, the middle is myometrium and the outermost is perimetrium. The perimetrium is thin, myometrium is the thick layer made up of smooth muscles, and endometrium is glandular layer which lines the cavity of the uterus. Endometrium has main function as it undergoes cyclic changes during menstrual cycle or the reproductive cycle at the age of puberty in females. I repeat, the endometrium undergoes cyclic changes during menstrual cycle, while the myometrium undergoes strong contractions during the delivery of the baby. The lower portion of the uterus is constricted and it is known as cervix. I repeat, the lower portion of uterus is constricted and is known as cervix, which opens into vagina. The cavity is called the cervical canal. I repeat, the cavity is called, cervix is called as cervical canal. Next organ is vagina. It is large muscular tube that runs from the uterus to the outside. Vagina receives the sperms during mating and serves as the birth canal during the birth of the child. The cervical canal along with the vagina is called as the birth canal. Thus we end with the parts of the female reproductive system. Vagina the cervical wall also secretes mucus, which is plugged during the process of implantation. This way we finish the various parts of the female reproductive system, and we begin with the gametogenesis process. The gametogenesis process is the process of the production of the gametes. It is different in females and males. Therefore, first of all, we will begin with the gametogenesis in the male reproductive system. Here, first in the male, it is termed as spermatogenesis. So the process of the formation of sperms is known as spermatogenesis, and the process of the formation of female gamete or eggs is termed as oogenesis. Thus we can say the gametogenesis is the process of the gametes, and it is different in both male as well as female. We will begin with the process of gametogenesis in males. The process of gametogenesis is also termed as spermatogenesis. So now here you can see on the screen the process of gametogenesis. Gametogenesis takes place in the seminiferous tubules. Gametogenesis takes place, or spermatogenesis occurs in seminiferous tubules of testes, which I have already explained you in my previous lecture. Each tubule contains two types of cells. They are germinal epithelial cells and Sertoli cells. I repeat, they are germinal epithelial cells and Sertoli cell, which you can observe in the given figure 3.5. It is the diagrammatic sectional view of the seminiferous tubule, which is enlarged. Its diagram, the full complete diagram, I have already shown you, which I'll show you again. First of all, now here you see the diagram, which is giving you the detailed structures of the seminiferous tubule containing different types of cells. The first one I said, the germinal epithelial cell and the Sertoli cells. Now what about the germinal epithelium cells? These are also called as primary germ cells. I repeat, germinal epithelium cells are also called as primary germ cells. These line the tubules internally. These cells are diploid, that is having 2n number of chromosomes. They undergo number of stages to give rise to haploid spermatids. The Sertoli cells I have already discussed. Once again recalling you, the Sertoli cells are large elongated supporting cells present in between the strings of developing cells. They project into the lumen and provide nourishment to the developing sperms. The spermatids get embedded in the Sertoli cells and later on get transformed into sperms. These sperms are however immature, hence stored in epididymis, where they turn into mature sperms. Now, various important steps of spermatogenesis. It's very important to have a glance towards the diagram which is given in this figure 3.5, because it is only going to show you the various type of cells. On the screen you see Sertoli cell, elongated cell, which is going to provide the nutrition, and you can see the spermatids attaining the nutrition from the Sertoli cells. Therefore, they are also termed as nursing cells. Now we come to the important stages of the process of spermatogenesis. There are three important stages of spermatogenesis. The first stage is multiplication phase, second is the growth phase, and the third is the maturation phase or meiotic phase, and fourth is the spermiogenesis. So we move on to the multiplication phase. It is the process by which cell divides into many cells. The germinal epithelium, or I said the primary germ cells of seminiferous tubules, are called as spermatogonial cells. I repeat, the germinal epithelial cells or the primary cells of seminiferous tubules are also called as spermatogonial cells. They are small cells. They are about 12 mm in diameter. At maturity, they undergo repeated mitotic divisions to form a number of spermatogonia. I repeat, at maturity, these spermatogonial cells, they undergo many mitotic division to form number of spermatogonia. Spermatogonium is singular and spermatogonia is plural. Each spermatogonia, it is a diploid cell, as I told you earlier also. Spermatogonia is a diploid cell containing 46 chromosomes. Now the spermatogonia give rise to two types of cells, type A spermatogonia and the type B spermatogonia. The type A spermatogonia, these cells, they continue as stem cells. They serve as the stem cells of spermatogenic lineage. Whereas the type B spermatogonia, these are differentiated into spermatogonial cells or progenitor cells. These undergo spermatogenesis and differentiated to form sperm cells. Now we move to the next phase of the spermatogenesis, that is growth phase. In this phase, some of the spermatogonia increase in their size by accumulating nourishing materials from the germinal cells. That means they get the nourishment from the germinal cells and they increase in their size and they become almost double in volume, and they are termed as primary spermatocytes. You can see on the screen that because of the increase in the volume, the primary spermatogonial cells are larger than the spermatogonia. In the growth phase, actually it is a preparatory phase for the initiation of meiosis division. A primary spermatocyte is a large and diploid cell which contains 46 or 2n number of chromosomes. You have to again involve this and again that a primary spermatocyte cell is a large and diploid which contains 46 or 2n number of chromosomes. Next we move on maturation phase. In the maturation phase, there is occurrence of the meiotic division. That means the maturation phase helps in giving rise to both meiosis 1 and meiosis 2 divisions. Here each primary spermatocyte, which I mentioned is a diploid cell, undergoes the first meiotic division to give rise to two haploid secondary spermatocytes. I repeat, each primary spermatocyte, which is a diploid cell, undergoes first meiotic division to give rise to two haploid secondary spermatocytes. These are in turn undergoes a quick second meiotic division, which is also termed as equational division. This because it is similar to mitosis. Second meiotic division to produce a total number of 4 haploid equal cells called as haploid spermatids. I repeat, the 2 haploid secondary spermatocytes, they undergo quick second meiotic division to give rise to 4 haploid spermatids. Thus each spermatid has 23 chromosomes. The spermatids are unspecialized cells and do not undergo any further division. I repeat, the spermatids are unspecialized cells and do not undergo any further division. All 4 spermatids, though have separate nuclear matter, still they remain connected by the cytoplasm. They separate out only during the process of spermiogenesis. So the process of spermiogenesis now, it is the transformation of unspecialized spermatid into spermatozoa. I repeat, the process of spermiogenesis is the transformation of unspecialized spermatid into a spermatozoa. You can also call them sperms. The spermatids get embedded in the Sertoli cell. I mentioned earlier also the head of the spermatids, they remain embedded in the Sertoli cells, which provide support, protection and nutrition. The spermatid gets transformed into sperm by losing a great deal of cytoplasm, condensation of nucleus into a head and by formation of a flagellated tail. During the development, the flagellated tail of the sperm projects into the lumen, while the head is embedded into the Sertoli cell. You can see on the screen that spermatid head is embedded in the Sertoli cell for attaining the nutrition, and the flagellated tail is in the lumen. The mature spermatozoon or sperm finally get detached and released into the lumen of the seminiferous tubule by the process called spermiation. I repeat, the mature spermatozoon or the sperm finally get detached and is released into the lumen of the seminiferous tubule by the process of spermiation. Okay, so there are all the terms starting with the S, but they are quite different from each other. I'll recall them when I finish this topic. From one diploid primary spermatocyte, 4 haploid sperms are formed. Thus, we can say from one diploid primary spermatocyte, I recall, having 2n number of chromosomes, and haploid sperms or the spermatozoa, they contain only n number of chromosomes, as well as the spermatids also are haploid, that means having n number of chromosomes. The temperature plays a great role here in the development of the spermatozoa. Because of this only, I had already explained you in the previous lecture that testes, they are extra abdominal, or they fail to descend from the abdominal cavity, and this, or even if for any other reason, if the testes fail to descend from abdominal cavity, the spermatogenesis does not take place and it leads to sterility. An adult male produces about 10 to the power 12 to 10 to the power 13 sperms in a day, and the sperms gradually move into the epididymis. This I had mentioned earlier also, that the sperms, they gradually move into the epididymis, where they turn into the mature sperms and they get concentrated here, as well as they undergo maturation and they are stored here in the epididymis. I repeat, the sperms move into the epididymis where they get concentrated, they undergo maturation, as well as they remain stored here. And the Sertoli cells secrete an androgen binding protein. I repeat, Sertoli cells secrete an androgen binding protein. It is designated as ABP, written in capital letters, that concentrates testosterone in the seminiferous tubules. I repeat, this androgen binding protein concentrates testosterone in the seminiferous tubule. Now, there is very important thing to be noted, that there is hormone, this process of spermatogenesis is under control of the hormones. So I would like to explain the process of hormonal control of spermatogenesis. In the process of spermatogenesis, I told you earlier, it begins at the age of puberty in males, and that is from 13 years to 16 years of age in boys. The gonadotropin releasing hormone called as GnRH, which you can see on the screen, the gonadotropin, GONADOTROPIN, that is gonadotropin releasing hormone, designated as GnRH, is a hypothalamic hormone, means it is released from the hypothalamus. It first stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to produce two gonadotropins. I repeat, hypothalamus, you can make a flowchart, or either I'll give you this flowchart in my prepared notes also. The gonadotropin releasing hormone is a hypothalamic hormone. It stimulates anterior pituitary to produce two gonadotropin. First is LH, known as luteinizing hormone, and second is FSH, or you can say the luteinizing hormone is also termed as interstitial cell stimulating hormone. I repeat, luteinizing hormone or interstitial cells stimulating hormone. This ICSH, it's not there in your NCERT, but you have to learn it. And FSH, that is follicle stimulating hormone. The LH, or I said ICSH, I am repeating, interstitial cell stimulating hormone. This LH stimulates the Leydig cells or interstitial cells to secrete androgen, which I had mentioned to you in my previous lecture also. I repeat, this LH stimulates the interstitial cells to secrete androgen like testosterone, which is required for the process of spermatogenesis. This will help in the formation or the production of the spermatozoa. Another is FSH, which stimulates the Sertoli cells to facilitate the development of the sperms or spermiogenesis. I repeat, another is FSH, which stimulates Sertoli cells, which help in the process of spermio, which I mentioned you just today itself in my explanation of the above diagram given to you in the figure 3.5. FSH also stimulates Sertoli cells to produce a peptide hormone called as inhibin that specifically inhibits FSH secretion. Now, we can say that the rising level of testosterone suppresses the release of GnRH from hypothalamus. Under the control of FSH and testosterone, Sertoli cells secrete an androgen binding protein. I repeat, under the control of FSH and testosterone, Sertoli cells secrete an androgen binding protein ABP and concentrates testosterone in the seminiferous tubule. Both testosterone and inhibin exert negative feedback inhibition on the secretion of LH and FSH. This way, I here end with the explanation of these hormones, that the hypothalamus triggers the GnRH. GnRH is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, which acts on the anterior pituitary to release two gonadotropins. They are LH and FSH. LH triggers the Leydig cells. FSH triggers the Sertoli cells present in the testes. LH helps in the release of the testosterone, which help in the process of spermatogenesis, whereas FSH stimulates the process of spermiogenesis.